Now, you also used it to reach out to some celebrities, right?
So I've slid in like every possible DM. most likely.
So it's like shameless, like, oh, here's my stuff.
Like to the point where I figured out when Instagram will block you from DMs.
Oh, I didn't even know they can do that.
One of the most important phrases that I've ever heard in my life, or sayings, is like, you know, if your life is worth living, it's worth documenting.
Lucky Boys Podcast.
You know, how important the social media plays into the climate. You were telling me something about you were coming into this game where when trade shows was making that transition, where it was like very important to attend these trade shows and find buyers, right, and investors, and it's making that transitions where it's not as important anymore, and then you come to a point where the market is completely saturated. How did you navigate through all of that?
So I think in terms of social media and importance, I feel like it's the number one tool. You know, it's like for me, I'm a college dropout, so it's like, hey, like social media is my way to reach people and talk to people. You know, it's like there's no better way than what I post and what I do and interact. I can just do it at scale with so many people, and it's like, if in terms of like trade shows and things like that, it's a lot of buyers now are kind of betting on, hey, will your brand succeed, right? And they're looking at, will customers back you, because they want you to make money for them. You know, they're investing in your pieces, they're buying wholesale from you, but they're not just buying it just because your clothes are cool. They're like, hey, like this brand will sell. And in order for that brand to sell, you know, they have to know like this brand is strong and they have their own customer base, and my customer is going to recognize it and believe in this product and believe in the brand, and you know, be willing to spend money on it. So especially for new brands coming up, it's like, I think that growing your own following, growing your own social media is probably the most important thing, because you have the backing, right? Where stores will start coming to you. Like last week we just opened 2 new store accounts, and those were accounts that just called us up and they're like, hey, like, you know, we want to stock you in our store, right? Like, how can we do wholesale with you? Let's do some business. And that was from just, you know, like one of our first accounts in LA, that was literally just a customer walks into their store and is like, hey, they're like, I think the owner is trying to sell him some jeans, and it was like $600 or something like that. And the customer was like, hey, like, wait, I wouldn't pay $600 for these. I would pay $600 for the pair of jeans I'm wearing, and they're only $300, you know. And the store owner's like, huh, like, what is that brand? And looks us up on Instagram, and basically, yeah. So I think like that's like super powerful to have like an audience, like and like especially like customers that are, you know, like especially like to, you know, promote you. That's what happens with social media versus betting on the store. You know, it's like, there's pros and cons, you know. If you can sell to the store immediately, there's definitely that. But I'm like, wow, like how cool is it that every person that is following the brand is rooting for the brand to succeed in that way, where, you know, they're like, hey, like, fuck those jeans. Like, oh, I don't even know if I'm supposed to curse on this.
No, you're good, man. Yeah, you're
like,
you're
oh,
good.
like, fuck those jeans, right? Like, I'm not gonna pay $600 for these, but if you have Akings in your store, I'll pay for them, right? And
there's that demand from your customers and your audience.
Right. So they ended up calling us up, and, you know, that's how we got a store in LA. And I think that's what like social media really does. And it allows you to, more people to work with you, right? There's a different platform they can share it to their friends and so on.
Now, is there like a learning curve to it? Like, did you have to feel like, oh, damn, I have to get out my shell? Or was it something like, no, I'm just going to do it. It's super simple. I'm just going to get on social media and this is what it's going to be. Because I hear it on both sides.
Yeah.
I hear some people going, you know what? I got to get out my shell and put myself out there, especially if I'm trying to sell a product or build some brand awareness.
There's definitely some sort of, there's a little bit of both for me, at least. Like there's a part of me that just like shares abundantly, and I'm just like, hey, like this is what I'm doing, and, you know, like this is where this is the journey. And I look at it like one of the most important phrases that I've ever heard in my life or sayings is like, you know, if your life is worth living, it's worth documenting. So for me, I look at social media as like documentation of my life, where I'm like, wow, how cool is it that I can look back 3 years and see my early prototypes from 4 or 5 years ago? Or like, how cool is it that I can see like even my first retail account, you know, and I have like timestamps of like my runways, my first trade shows, like my first pop-ups. I think that's something that is so precious to me. You know, it's almost like a journal that's out there, and even for the rest of the world to see like, hey, this is everything I've been doing.
I love the way you phrase that, and I love the way that you approach social media in that context. If your life is worth living, then it's worth documenting. That is a very important phrase, especially this day and age with social media having just so much negative connotations attached to it. And you are able to utilize it in a way that's positive for yourself, for the people that follow you, and just to build your brand as a whole. Now, you also use it to reach out to some celebrities, right?
So I've slid in like every possible DM. most likely.
So it's like shameless, like, oh, here's my stuff.
Like to the point where I figured out when Instagram will block you from DMs.
Oh, man. I didn't even know they can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's something where it's like, you know, with social media, you have access to technically everybody, right? You have an inbox that you, and unlike emails, it gets checked pretty frequently, surprisingly, by a lot of people. So even if they don't open and reply to it, there are chances that they've probably seen it. Like, you know, even me, like I'll check my DMs and I don't necessarily reply to every single one, but I'll open some of them, right? And I'll reply to a set number of them. And I think it's, my thought process was kind of like, this is, what is the worst thing that can happen? You know, I walk myself through this thing, and like the worst thing that could happen is like nobody replies, and maybe they see it and like they're not interested.
And they don't say anything.
They don't say anything. Yep. And I wasted like 2 seconds of my life, if that's considered wasting, right? To copy and paste this message. So for me, because that was like the worst thing that would happen, I was like, oh, there's nothing to lose really. I just spend 30 minutes, an hour of my time DMing all these people, seeing what works. So the first time I did this, I think one of the first times I did this, I remember I woke up to like Ben Baller replying to, so that was something like super shocking, where he said something along the lines of like, man, like out of 700 DMs I get, I barely even open one a day. And I was just like, holy shit, Ben Baller replied. And,
shit, wow.
You know,
Very
and I was
cool.
like, this is possible. Like there's other people I can reach. And he was super cool about it. Like he was just like, yeah, I looked at your site and, you know, really respect what you're doing. And like, I love what you're doing. So, gave me an address, gave me his sizes, and it was just like, yeah, like, and I was just like, oh shit, like man, my website. Oh, started thinking about all these things right in the back, like, oh man, like my website.
Stacking confidence right there.
wait, this was before your website, before you had anything?
No, this is this is like I'm in the time where my website maybe is not necessarily where it is today too.
Got it.
So I started thinking about like, man, like he's seeing me. I think I was shooting my own e-commerce photos, like I was modeling some of it. And I was like, oh man, like this man's watching me model my own photos on my website. And it was super cool though. So I just knew like, wow, like this is possible, right? Like I think I DM'd like 50 or 100 people that day. I got 3 replies. One of them was Ben Baller. I don't remember exactly which one the other 2 were, but that stood out to me so much that I was like, wow, you know what? I'm going to just DM as many people as possible, right? And then I did this on a not just celebrity level, actually. Like I met some of my best friends and like content creator photographers this way, like videographers. We even find like random models sometimes, you know, through there. And it's like a digital phone book, but you have access to everybody, right?
Yeah, we were talking about this, that people don't use business cards anymore. It's basically their IG account, you know, Instagram. This is my business card if you're a creator.
Yeah.
Or entertainment, actor, model, photographer, like it's, or create an artist. It really is your business card.
And I think it's super cool. Like, I mean, it's almost like I remember. So the one friend that actually got me into this is his name is Dizzy, and he was like a photographer where I think he was traveling. He was going from LA to New York, and he was DMing people that he found on an Explore page that were making content and things like that. And he just saw my page. He thought I was a photographer, and I had like one hoodie at the time. So I think I was in high school, like 17, 18, and he was like, "Hey man, like I'm coming to New York. I want to shoot some stuff, you know, like let's." And I think this is like years ago. So he has like 20,000 followers, 30,000 followers or something, and I have like I think like 2,000 or 3,000 followers, and I'm just like, yeah, like let's do it, you know, like let's just meet up, let's see what happens. And he actually is like a really cool dancer, and he's super cool photographer. So he was just showing me. I got exposed to like, oh, like this is how social media works, kind of through him, where he's like, hey man, like let's take a photo of this bag, and let's tag this bag company because I think they'll feature us for it. So I take a photo of his bag. The bag company features us, and I was like, oh wow, like people share, you know, reposts, and there's a whole community behind this. Right. As I saw that, it just was like this is how I can grow and be exposed to different kind of platforms and people, right? Like he later on ends up couple years later, like 2 years later, he's like, hey, by the way, like I just started doing full-time photography for Jason Derulo, you know. And it was just like, wow, like that's crazy. Like I just met you from Instagram 2 years ago. We're just hanging out, shooting photos at World Trade before all the ads were there, and it's just all white. Yeah. And now you're doing this and on tour with this guy. It's like insane, right? So kind of like that stacking thing. Like it's just like it started with just even some photographers and creators that were just in the area or traveling, and meeting, growing, and then those relationships, everybody ended up doing really cool things.